It has been a good while since we talked about a Battlefield-like game, because if you didn't know, I used to be quite a dedicated Battlefield YouTuber. In the height of 2042, I really enjoyed that game. I have over 900 hours in Battlefield 2042 and about 400 hours in the other games in the series combined. Now, of course, that doesn't give me any credentials to explain and hold weight in a conversation about the series over anybody else. I'm just using that number to express to you how fond I am of the Battlefield formula and how fun I find it. So when today's game, Delta Force, came into early alpha, I was first in line to sign up for it. Delta Force Hawk Ops is a Battlefield-like game with a campaign and extraction mode and a Battlefield-like mode, including Conquest and Breakthrough. All those sort of modes that we're used to in the Battlefield series, they're here. But for the alpha, we only had the extraction mode and breakthrough in the chaotic all-out warfare style mode, which is what I'm going to be focusing on today. My expectations weren't incredibly high for Delta Force, and in some cases the game absolutely blew them out of the water, but in others I was left scratching my head. There's a lot to talk about here in terms of what makes Delta Force tick, what it's taken from other games, and some of the baffling decisions that have been made here. For the most part though, I'm pretty impressed by the offering here, and I had a lot of fun during this alpha so far. Let's get all the stuff that I really liked about this alpha out of the way first, and this is just for the Havoc Warfare side of things, I think it's called, which is the Battlefield-like one. I haven't played the extraction mode, I'm not too interested in that, I'm here for the all-out warfare. As a good main point, they get the Battlefield formula correct for the most part. On the whole, I felt that this worked cohesively together with different types of players, different classes, if you will, but we'll get onto that in a minute and what that really means. Different vehicles around the maps, good map design and flow for the most part, points being scored for everything that you do on the battlefield, not just kills, which is wonderful. And unlike Ground War, for example, in Call of Duty, which I've tried a couple times, but never really felt like it got that formula just right, it felt like there was always something missing, Delta Force here feels like it has a good grasp on what makes Battlefield Battlefield. And of course, it's trying to be its own thing, but it's very clear here that that is kind of the inspiration for these modes. It's a lot of stuff been lifted from the Battlefield series and put into this, and for the most part, they get everything pretty much spot on, at least in terms of how everything feels when you're actually playing in the field. The breakthrough mode that I played seemed a little bit defender weighted, but it was fairly fun to play. It works exactly how you'd imagine it in the Battlefield games, and it was a load of fun to be playing a brand new game again where you can see battle lines of defenders and attackers fighting for positions with well-placed cover, meaning that you can really get dug in and make yourself a problem for the enemy, which I really enjoyed. The maps visually look pretty damn good as well. I wouldn't say they're quite as high fidelity as something that, say, DICE can do in their Battlefield series, and I'd even say a game like Battlefield 1 or 5 might look better than this, but the art direction and the visual grit that it has is better than 2042. Of course, it is a personal preference. Some people may prefer 2042's look compared to something like this, which is a bit more insurgency coded, I want to say. But for me, this is what I want to get out of a Battlefield style map, with loads of litter and debris and military items everywhere, and little bunkers and emplacements. It feels like a war-torn and important area you're fighting through, and that's all I can really ask for. The weapons feel pretty solid as well. I've heard some rumours that they've taken some reloads from other games in terms of animations, which I'll need to look into a bit further, and if that's the case, that's really disappointing, because on first inspection, the reloads, the animations, the weapon feel and gunplay is incredibly solid here. Sound design is punchy, the time to kill isn't too fast or slow, I feel like it's pretty alright. The hit registration I didn't really have any problems with throughout my playtime, and each weapon has loads of attachments that you can also calibrate to fit your playstyle, so you can take a grip and prioritize handling over movement speed, or vice versa, which is honestly adding a layer of depth to the gunsmith system that I hadn't really seen before. When you're in firefights as well, the voice lines from other soldiers around you are pretty damn good. They remind me a lot, again, of the Battlefield series where you can hear teammates yelling out for help or calling out enemies as bullets go flying past you. On the whole, the sound design is pretty damn good, and especially with the music at the end of the round, everything can kind of come together to feel like those moments in Battlefield 4, 5 and 1, and less so 2042 because I'm less engaged by that soundtrack over the others, but it still holds water for that game as well. But when you're pushing for that final objective and the soundtrack kicks in, it feels really intense, which is a thumbs up from me. Finally, for the good stuff, the performance was pretty much perfect. I was on ultra settings, I was hitting about 100 to 120 FPS at all times, no drops at all, and for an alpha, it's probably the most polished alpha I've ever seen. I didn't really run into any bugs, apart from my character T-posing for a split second when I hopped off a quad bike one time, but that is literally all I ran into. It might be the case that the alpha is just kind of more of a server test, and the rest of the game is polished as hell, but if it launched in this state, at least from what I've played, I'd be perfectly happy with it, and it would launch a lot better than a lot of AAA games that come out nowadays. Overall, all of those points I just talked about, I find absolutely fantastic about Delta Force, especially for a free-to-play game when it eventually comes out. I think on all platforms, it's going to be a really good option for people to hop in and try out a Battlefield-like game, and will be a game that will keep me going until the next Battlefield release. It feels that good. However, as I said, not everything is perfect with this alpha. And it's not really alpha-style issues that I'm talking about here, it's just gameplay and design choices. The first one being, we have operators here and they have horrendous voice lines the same as 2042. To 2042's credit, they completely redesigned the operators, got rid of the voice lines, introduced a class system, but Delta Force is taking the wrong lessons from that game in that regard, and I kind of get it because it is a free-to-play game. You want some hero-style characters for people to latch onto and eventually spend money on for cosmetics probably. Let's hope that those cosmetics keep within the military theme, but we'll have to see if they do end up coming out. But yeah, I'm going to let some voice lines play because they're not great.
Don't call me mister, call me doctor. I got your back, your front, your whole meat sack.
Time to bust out some reps.
Check it. My arrows are lit.
Get ready, soldier. Back on your feet, mate.
And it does just feel a little immersion breaking, the same as 2042 at launch, less so now because there are so many skins in that game, so it's hard to tell some operators apart. But here, in Delta Force, you are seeing the same 4 people running around. For the enemy team, that isn't really a problem because engagements are at a fairly long distance, I found, for a lot of the rounds, and especially with this map design, you do have some really cool long distance firefights where you can't really tell what the enemy skin is, so it doesn't look like the same for operators running around. But for your own team, each class only has 1 operator in the alpha really, apart from 2 others which are locked until further progression. But right off the bat, you're having the same 4 people duplicated and running around, which again, yeah, it isn't ideal, but we've been there in previous games in the Battlefield type genre, and we're here again, unfortunately. It's a design choice that I don't really agree with, but it didn't ruin the game for me at all. It's just a little nitpick, really. My other point, which is a little bit negative, is that I feel like there are bots in these lobbies. I'll need to do a little bit more playtesting to see, but it feels like there are some bots even with like Twitch TV in their names, I've noticed, where a couple of them are like staring at walls or they're not really responding like a human, and you can kill them fairly easily, and I just don't really see the need for that. I don't really understand why they're in the game if they are. It definitely seems like they're bots, and I think the game could really just get away with having all human players. I don't really understand that, but overall, I've been enjoying Delta Force. And for a game that's going to come out with a full campaign and 2 multiplayer modes, it seems like it's got a lot of content here. I still haven't tried the extraction mode because, again, that's not really my thing, but maybe I'll give it a go. But overall, I have been enjoying it. It's been a load of fun. So, have you been enjoying it? Have you picked it up? Did you get into the alpha? Have you just been watching videos just to see what it's like? Please do let me know in the comments below. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you to our patrons and YouTube members: Luke Bentley, Phil Irving, Hazit Mirza, Ace Gamer, Hippie Pickle, Jin007, A License to Chill, Sun WTF, Fat Controllers, Jason Parker, Lamar Hall, and Geordie Bansma. If you'd like to like and sub, we occasionally do flat screen games like this. We'll be covering Helldivers 2 probably fairly soon again with its new update, and also covering Space Marine 2 when that drops next month. But most of the time, we are doing virtual reality stuff here, so it's not the norm to do FPS things, but occasionally we do because I do have a love for this genre. So if you'd like to subscribe, feel free to do so. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.